Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. When I started this podcast in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women business owners, creatives, and entrepreneurs. In each episode, my guests provide resources, valuable tips, and inspiration. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strength to achieve success on their own terms. Did you know that you can find the Women Entrepreneurs Radio podcast on many podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube also? If you listen on Apple Podcasts, please take a moment to share your feedback and a review. 5 stars is always great, because the more that you share your feedback, the easier it will be for the show to be found by more listeners. So I hope you'll take a moment to do that. And as well, you can stop by the blog, womenentrepreneursradio.com, and you can find extended bios of the show guests and articles and announcements of interest to women business owners. So please make sure you stop by the blog and also subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Oh, wait, before you go, you can also stop by dbaileycoach.com to find out more about my nonfiction books and about my online writing courses for fiction authors. And dbaileycoach.com/brightbooks is where you'll find my paranormal and fantasy romance novels. And now, let's get started with the show. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I'm so glad that you could join us today. And I am going to get started and introduce my guest. Aysha Saeed is the CEO and creative director of AYSHA New York, an ethical, sustainable luxury women's fashion lifestyle brand launched in 2016 in New York City. And before launching the AYSHA New York brand, she started out on a very different professional path, the world of finance in New York City. And while she did well in that sector, she realized that she was missing something in her life, something that brought her joy, and that's all things fashion. So welcome to the show, Aysha.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. So excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so glad that you were able to join me and just have this chat about your business. So as I usually ask my guests, if you could please share how you got started on this path and starting your business, because this, I think, will be a very interesting story.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. As you mentioned in the intro, when I worked in the finance world, I absolutely, truly felt that I was missing something that brought me joy. I mean, it's as simple as that, but it's a very complicated as well, because what brings you joy and how do you turn it into your career or your 9 to 5 and beyond? That's obviously is not so simple. For me, having a job in the world of finance is something that I was programmed that I needed to do. So I have security because that's what my family installed in my mind, that you get a job so you could pay your bills. That's what you do. And that's what I did. Mm-hmm. But being in that industry for 7-8 years by then, I realized that growing old and doing this job for the rest of my life was not going to make me happy. And life is short. And I say this, this little test I read somewhere that when you're 80 years old, will you have any regrets? And whatever your answer is, that's something you should really lean into and think about. So for me, when I asked myself that question, that answer was I would regret that I never pursued a career in the fashion industry. So that's what led me to want to dig deeper into it, and I explored different possibilities. And I knew early on that I didn't want to go back to school to learn another profession or trade or skill set. So I wasn't looking to go to 4-year design school. No way. So if you don't want to go to school, the other way of learning a craft is actually doing the craft, getting hands-on training and being able to work with someone who can teach you and open this world up for you. I always loved fashion as a young individual. And when I worked in finance, I really bought beautiful clothes. I must admit, I saved up money and bought less, but bought well. Mm-hmm. Italian designers were my favorite designers and brands. So I had an opportunity to move to Milan for a bit. And there I said, I'm going to launch my own design and consulting business, which was really a way for me to get my foot in the door. Mm-hmm. And I worked for a lot of the design houses as an intern, as somebody new coming in. And I just said, I want to learn. And with much hard work and a lot of, cold calling and traveling, I got the great privilege and honor to work for Dior in Paris and Dolce & Gabbana in Paris, in working with them on production and design. So that's where I really got to learn my fashion sensibility. And then many years forward, I stayed in New York more permanently and launched my own brand, which alone had many twists and turns to get to where it is today.
Wow.
I know it's a long-winded answer. Sorry,
no.
That kind of encompasses my entire journey, so to speak. Yeah.
No, definitely. We definitely want to hear all of it, because I think that is what motivates people who listen in who don't have a business, or those who do, and just want to know what other people's journeys have been, because that can be very motivating and also can be very informative.
Yeah.
So for your line, and you had all this wonderful exposure and work in the business and doing all of that, which is definitely necessary for people to go into things. I think to really be in these businesses that are out there successful, and you see how it's done and you can apply that yourself. When it came down to it, did you design the pieces? You already had in mind how you want these things to look, what they were going to be, who your customer was. Is that something you always knew, or did you come to formulate that as you went through and learned from these different houses?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I worked with these other design houses, they taught me the basics, by working around them, just even watching them. I didn't even have to do anything. Just being in their room, I absorbed like a sponge everything I wanted to learn, because I was so curious. So that what I did learn from them, where they were making very expensive clothes. They were like, $5,000 dress. I did a lot of embellishment on dresses that went even further, higher price point. Mm-hmm. I liked the craft, but I knew when I had my own brand, I didn't want to make clothing those price points. I wanted to make clothing that someone like myself or my friends could afford. Mm-hmm. And that would be anywhere from $200 to $500, contemporary price points. And that was the mindset I had. Like, the stuff is beautiful, but I couldn't afford this, and I don't know other people who could. So that was one way of knowing what prices I wanted, where I wanted to be in the market. And then further on, that was just very small piece of the puzzle. How do you create your customer base, or who you're selling to? Rest of it came through many twists and turns, making an enormous amount of mistakes, spending even more amount of money. One can say, oh my God, it was wasted, but really it wasn't wasted. It was my market research. It was my way of discovering what Aysha New York really stood for. And over time, what I realized was that in order for me to really have the clarity on who my end customer is, I needed to be very focused and dialed in on my why. Why am I even doing this? Why am I creating a fashion brand? What purpose is it serving? What am I trying to achieve? So I say that to every entrepreneur who's who's looking to start their own business. It really needs to come much deeper. Why are you doing what you're doing? So that becomes your North Star that defines your brand, your aesthetic. So for me, that was a pivotal moment, and that allowed me to figure out who my customer is and where I needed to go as a brand.
Mm-hmm. And I understand that your clothing is made sustainably.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yes. So what that means, I mean, sustainability has so many different definitions and brackets and buckets you can put information in. For a fashion brand, when I came to a realization that fashion is the second largest polluter in the world. If you look into our supply chain, you look at everything that goes from a concept to the end product. And a lot of times when the fashion becomes old, it ends up in fields. And that just adds more pollution to the environment. I said, okay, instead of adding, can we be a solution? So there are many different ways you could be a solution. And I believe in doing what you can. Obviously, we're not going to solve the crisis of what's happening in our planet, but definitely I want to play a role, small role, even if that is. Some of the things we take into account is, for example, hang tags. Do people really care if there are hang tags on your clothing when you receive? What's the first thing you do when you get an item of clothing? You rip it off and it goes in the garbage.
Yes.
And sometimes garments have 2 or 3 tags hanging off of them. So we look at the carbon footprint that creates just the creating of the tag, the paper getting shipped, the whole chain. We stopped it. We asked our customers if they would have a problem with it. Not a single customer said, oh, I want my hang tag. So just cutting back on what we need and just recycling a lot of the materials. If we are using hangers, we won't throw them out. We recycle them. We try not to use plastic. Fabric, there's something called dead stock or dead fabric. That really means utilizing fabric that's already been created. It's in the market rather than going out and creating new fabric for yourself. So we utilize, sometimes we do have to buy new fabric, but if I can find something in our dead stock options, then I will use that. And how we produce the merchandise is also very important. We produce everything locally. We are bringing jobs to the New York City Garment Center back. That's an important initiative, rather than mass producing garments overseas where they produced in sometimes in environments that are not so ethically acceptable. The working conditions, we rather give business to the New York City garment centers where jobs can be created. So that's part of our sustainability effort. So it's all ecosystem that we operate in and try to do the best we can.
And that's definitely a really good initiative. Because years ago, I used to work there for a women's clothing manufacturer, and the garment district was always bustling. There's always a lot of activity. And then I had heard after a while, after I kind of changed careers and wasn't there, that, there was a lot of change, that things weren't being created there anymore. And it just seemed like such a loss.
Right. Oh, the garment center has changed tremendously over the past 10 years, I would say, if not more. And even the past year and a half has changed further. Because a lot of the bigger brands are looking for better production prices. So they're sending their garments to be produced overseas, and not just the production, even the designing of a lot of the clothing is getting done overseas. And we design everything in-house. We produce everything within New York City. So I think and our customers appreciate it. I couldn't do this if we didn't have a positive reaction from our customer base. They really like these initiatives we are taking because they want their money to matter. They want their spending power to really make a difference as well. So I'm very grateful that they get it. So sure, our garment prices might be a little bit more, but it's okay. They rather buy well-made, ethically produced clothing than something that's not, than a brand that's not so transparent.
That's true. I've definitely seen a lot more mentioned about this, more people definitely tuning into it and realizing these things are all very important, where before we may not have even thought about where these things being made and the impact. And that's definitely not the case anymore. So could you share a little bit about your new collection of dressing for the now?
Of course, yes. So obviously, because we all had such a difficult 2020, a very different last year, our clients' needs changed and our way of working changed. We had to adapt to a new world. So within that world, we created something called Dressing for the Now collection, which basically means that we, as consumers, had to put on clothing that matched our lifestyle. What was that lifestyle in 2020? Working from home, not going out. There weren't any social gatherings, but women still wanted to feel put together. Women still wanted to feel a spark of joy within us, even if we were just sitting in front of a Zoom camera or we were just meeting in small groups with our family. So to take that in, we created a bit of a more casual feel to our collection by keeping within our aesthetics. That is using really luxury fabric, design details, manufacturing capabilities did not get disrupted at all, but just the feel of the garments changed. They're more loungewear. We introduced more relaxed clothing. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, our clothing was that power dressing. You know, if you're in front of the room, you're presenting, running a team, you're a leader, C-suite executive, you dress a certain way to make an impact when you enter a room. Mm-hmm. But in 2020, we weren't entering any rooms. We were just in our own house. So Dressing for the Now collection had a very soft feel to it, and it did really well. Our consumer reacted to it in a very positive way, and I was grateful because that kept our business going forward. It wasn't as robust as 2019, but still it had enough momentum to keep the lights on. And the fact that we partnered up with 10 to 12 different small manufacturing capabilities and suppliers right here in New York City, we teamed up with them. So anything that's being made under Dressing for the Now collection is being manufactured by them. So these were other small businesses that kept in business because of this collection, because of our efforts, and because our customers bought the product. So it created a whole different, again, an ecosystem where we all were connected and helping each other. And that's part of the Dressing for the Now collection story. And we're going forward with that. That relaxed clothing fell into the spring, summer as well. And it's very resorty feel to it. And it's appropriate for businesswomen. It's appropriate for weekend wear. Mm-hmm. And I feel for fall, we'll continue to have the soft feel and bring back our power dressing. So now our consumers will have two options. And I'm very excited about that.
Well, that's great because I know a lot of people really don't want to go back into the office all the time anymore.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And, their work is changed. So some will work from office. Some actually miss not being in office. So they're looking forward to coming back to work. Mm-hmm. So everybody's going to have different needs. So the dressing needs, and as a fashion brand, we have to address those needs. And I think, we're doing a pretty good job based on the reaction we are receiving. And we're very in touch with our community. That's another big initiative for our brand, is to be close to our community. And so when you're that close, you get the feedback and you talk, see what the lifestyle needs are. And then we make our tweaks, accordingly. And when you are a New York based brand and manufactured here, you can quickly change things up as opposed to having 30, 60, 90, 4-month lead times, if you're producing overseas. So that's another advantage, is that we're far more agile, I like to think.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. And considering how quickly everything shut down last year.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Wow. That was something else, that March of 2020, a month I'll never forget. I think something that we will never forget, all of us.
Exactly. It was certainly, obviously unpredictable, but I think that's what's so interesting about, from a business perspective, is that a lot of times people may think, I know I can forecast, I know how this is going to happen, that's going to happen. But then when things like this come up, it throws all of that out the window.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. It's funny. I say that in 2020, I was expecting a recession because we kind of heard that rumbling from experts that, we could be headed for a recession. It's a very frothy economy right now. So I had that back of my mind, and I imagined, okay, we lose X amount of revenue. We would have to make some modification. But my God, when March, when we had to shut down, you lose 80-90% of your revenue. That's like an overnight it happened, so it's really scary, and it was very scary for me personally and professionally. But, looking back, I think human are built in a way that you have to survive. You start thinking of ways what you can modify, what you can cut back. We made major sacrifices and changes within our business. We downsized our office space. We cut back on our production, like many things we did, how we communicated to our community. We amped up certain other elements. For example, like being more visible and being honest with our community. I shared my personal fears and trepidation of what world we're entering in. And they resonated really well. So, being an entrepreneur really comes down to just accepting reality, go with the punches. Whatever comes your way, you've got to figure it out. There's no such thing as to be failure is not an option. That's what I always say. And you just have to figure things out. So you're constantly problem solving, even something like a global health pandemic. You need to figure it out, how to get out of this. And, it wasn't easy, and we're still struggling with it, but I always look at silver lining. What did we learn? What can we take forward that we can say this was worth it?
Right. Yeah. I think that's definitely true, from a business perspective, that you have to find ways to learn from what happened so that you can move forward.
Yeah. You have to. Otherwise, why did we go through this?
Right. Well, that's a great point. And do you normally have, I guess, a team or people who you can turn to bounce ideas off of when you're in this type of situation?
Yeah. I mean, that's so important to discuss. I do have, definitely, and I am grateful. And those few of those individuals are even friends who have done well in life. I can pick their brain and say, I'm going through this or that. They're eager to help. And then also within my team, I can have a discussion because I like speaking to my team members to see where they are mentally and emotionally, because they bring value to the table too. And then thirdly is my consumers. There are I dress some of the most, I would say, wonderful, amazing, powerful, successful women who are doing fantastic in their own field. If I reached out to them and they were eager to help, direct, and so that I found quite, it was really nice to see that they were there for me, and they knew I was going through such a difficult time. Some of the conversations we had, the support they gave, it's something I will never forget. And that actually made me say, I'm so proud of the kind of brand we have built, that we have a following of women that really care about our well-being. They actually went out, they would go as far as to say, hey, we need this brand to survive because you helped me over the years become more confident and vocal and achieve certain things. And I'm not going to let you disappear. So it's that kind of support that I received really touched me, and I am grateful to that. So, this advice and mentorship for me personally came from many different buckets. So I didn't have one particular individual. It was different brain trust around me that I, asked to help. And you also need to know when to ask for help. Like, don't hide and say everything is okay or crawl, and then you get depressed. I mean, I had those moments for like a nanosecond. I'm like, no. This is not how it's going to go down 2020. I'm going to ask for help, be comfortable with that. And because we were all going through that. It wasn't just me alone. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not just if a person's in a business situation and that one uh situation's happening. It was everyone.
Yeah, we all suffered in our own way. So,
Mm-hmm.
we're all in the same, and I tried to help anyone that needed my help. So definitely I was there for others as much as I could, and others were there for me. And I think that's how we all got through this as humans,
Right.
So, yeah. So
That's a great point. So could you please share with where everyone can find out more about your collection and everything else about you?
Of course. Yeah. The best place is to visit our website. It's, Aysha, AYSHANY.com. Once again, it's AYSHANY.com. So our website, we do have an e-commerce store you can visit, and all our styles are there. We are really specialized to make sure all our garments fit you properly and we can style you properly. So if you need help, you email us. We have done Zoom calls. We have done in-person appointments. I'm a big believer in garments need to fit you a certain way and fit your lifestyle. And in order for that to happen, sometimes you need to ask for help. So we're always here to help you with that. And you can also check us out on Instagram. It's Aysha.ny. It's AYSHA.ny. That's our Instagram handle. And those are probably the two places we are the most active, and you'll find new things.
And what's so interesting also is with the online world, there's even more ways to stay in touch with your customers. You didn't have to depend on, well, if everything is shut down, how am I going to reach out to them? It's a different world where now you can connect with them in so many different ways, even in an unpredictable world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, prior to COVID, I must admit our business was so heavy on an in-person experience, a high-touch service, and that's something we took great pride in, and we did a great job, I feel at. But when COVID came, which came out of nowhere, that you didn't have any time to plan, we weren't ready for the digital world, we could communicate, but how do you service them? So it took a while to get that understanding and build that out. One of the beautiful things that happened during the COVID was within our community, we were able to create a concept called Threaded Together Community. And that's an all digital space we're building out where we're creating, these groups and pods where women can meet and network, and we can facilitate that. And that's something we used to do in person, but now we can do it virtually. So a Threaded Together community is going to have a big role in fall and going forward. So that didn't happen before, but thanks to the world we are in and the technology we have gotten used to, we can launch something like that. So
that's very interesting, and it's a great way to take advantage of the technology, because even if you are in a position where people can interact personally, again, it doesn't hurt to have these other things in place that you can also serve people that maybe can't always be there or whatever's going on, that now it's not just one group, but now you can really serve a lot of other people who may not always have been able to be there personally.
Yep, absolutely. So we will continue to look at the silver linings that we have discovered, the new skill sets, the new way of working. And so to me, I'm committed as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a woman, whatever you want to call it. I'm committed to making 2020 count and look back and say, look what I've learned and how far I've come because of 2020 happened.
Yes. I think that's a wonderful way to look at it, and hopefully more business people are doing that as well. So from the fashion perspective, and we're saying that right now we're kind of in this maybe hybrid world as people are kind of waiting to maybe do more in person. And for that woman who is on those Zoom calls and everything, how can she present herself so that she has that still professional look.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, just because we're on Zoom does not mean, hey, just let go of everything and look like a hot mess. No, because it still matters. If you're just talking to family members and casual friends, sure, maybe it doesn't. But when you're on business calls, there's lots of webinars and conferences taking place. You really need to bring on your A game because you're being looked at the entire time. And the beauty of that is when you're on Zoom is just worry about waist up, We don't have to do the whole thing. So one way is to make sure your hair, makeup is in place. You don't have to go crazy, but just be aware that you have done something to look polished. And for women, that we created this style is called blouse set. It's a term we created. It's a blouse and a jacket coming together, and it has been our best-selling item for that purpose because it's just a little chiffon item you could put over a tank top, a t-shirt, and instantly you look like you're all ready for Zoom or anything else. It comes in 7 different prints, and it's seasonless. You could wear it just about all year long, and it's easy to travel with should you want to take it on vacation. It's quite versatile. And everybody loves the name blouse set. It has its own little ring to it. And that to me has been something that every woman from us has purchased that we have worked with. And we will continue forward with that in fall, perhaps add more fabrications. So you just need 1 or 2 key pieces that are easy to put on and that can give you instant put together look. So optimizing your wardrobe with that perspective. Don't have to revamp the entire wardrobe, but key pieces. What's missing in your closet? Where do you struggle? If you're really spending more than 5-7 minutes getting ready for anything, like for a work call or a work meeting, that means your wardrobe is not sorted out. So I always say this needs to be quick, fast decisions. And so buying the right items to begin with helps that. And if you don't know what those right items are, that's when you work with a brand that can style a look for you, a brand that can really spend time in getting you looking at styles and trying on items that are right for you.
Wow, that sounds great.
I know, because you just want to go get dressed and get something new and fresh and sure.
Yeah. Definitely. And I think just the idea of it not taking a lot of time to get ready is wonderful.
Yeah, and it's like, it's just so, makes life so easy. Like if you don't have to spend a lot of time getting ready and yet you can look fabulous, like how great is that? Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
The reason we don't look put together something because we didn't make the effort, like, so it's okay. Like right now I'm doing this podcast. I know I'm not physically being seen, so I really don't care how I look because no one's going to see me. And I call it our downtime when you're not being in front of a room. So it's okay. But there are times, you need to bring on your A game. That's when I say our brand, Aysha New York, comes into play because we make it easy for you. I remember I had a really nice feedback from a client of mine. She said, I can walk into a boardroom and look completely put together and not worry about what I'm going to wear. And I could just focus on what I need to say. And that's because you took care of my wardrobe. And I was like, wow, that's exactly what I'm here to do.
That is great feedback.
Yeah. So you can focus on what you need to do and let me do the outside work, the icing on the cake. You are the cake, I say, and we are the icing on the cake.
Wonderful. Wow, that's great. I like that. So that's perfect. And I could see why your customers are really excited to experience this new collection and see what's coming up. So Aysha, this has been a wonderful conversation, but do you have any final thoughts to share with us?
No, I am just grateful to be on this podcast with you, and thank you for hosting and having me. I just like to share that world is opening up, ladies. This is a time where we spend on how do we freshen things up in our wardrobe physically. We have all put on a little bit of weight. I hear this day in and day out, including myself. But like, you know what? Let's get ourselves in shape, get back our lives, because this is a new opportunity and we've gotten through a really difficult time. It's time for us to celebrate who we are with our friends and coworkers. So I'm very positive and I'm grateful that I continue to do what I do. And, thank you. And I look forward to, any feedback anyone has. They can find me on AYSHANY.com.
And that's great. So thank you so much for joining me today, Aysha. This has been wonderful. And I am sure that the listeners will definitely be checking out your website and your Instagram, see what you've got for them and what you've got coming up. Thank you again.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, everyone. I know you enjoyed the show. Please make sure you share this on social media and share it with your friends. And we will have the links for Aysha and her website in the show notes. So definitely check that out as well. So once again, it's been Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I want to thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to stop by womenentrepreneursradio.com to read extended bios of the show guests and also find links there for their websites and any offers that they have shared with you. And stop by our Facebook page at facebook.com/womenentrepreneurs.